There we are. The recording has started. So as always, the aims of our session, which have remained the same all year round, an opportunity to network with your peers, to be able to share and reflect on practice sharing from other people. And with our breakout rooms, you'll have an opportunity to discuss your reflections together. And we're also, at the end of the session, I'll provide you with some brief updates, national and regional. So that's our session this afternoon. Gosh, we've got a flurry of activity all of a sudden, everybody arriving. So our programme for this afternoon, we are with a little focus on reading this afternoon. We know that it's National Year of Reading, and we also know that Estin have an enhanced focus on reading. So we'll start there this afternoon briefly with me before getting into the best part of the afternoon, which is two colleagues from two of our schools in our region sharing practice with a bit of a focus on reading, but not just reading this afternoon. Before I have a couple of requests of your brain power this afternoon. One, to think for a moment about extended writing and what do we mean by extended writing, but also I'm pleading for some support with some work that might be going on next year. And we'll finish the session this afternoon by just alerting you to next year's network meetings before we leave, and I hope to have you away by 3 o'clock to give you a bit of leeway at the end of the afternoon. So without further ado, you'll know, of course, that this year is the National Year of Reading in the UK, and that earlier of this year we had confirmation from Welsh Government that in Wales we're part of that UK-wide National Year of Reading, a bilingual campaign to build on the work that's already underway in schools, in clusters, with learners and families across the UK, with an aim to improve literacy standards and to nurture a lasting habit of enjoying reading. So the campaign this year is encouraging us all to go all in and enjoy reading. So I've just included on the slide there, obviously you'll have access to all of these slides at the end of the session, a link to the National Year of Reading on Wales.gov. That being said, you'll also be aware, I'm sure, and for any of you that have had a core inspection very, very recently, you'll be aware of Estin's 3-year enhanced focus on reading. This will see the inspectorate working to prioritise improving the reading skills of all learners in Wales as part of that focus on improving standards across Wales. Reading is a priority in every core inspection for nearly all providers, but certainly for all primary schools. Estin would say that they have always considered the quality of reading in different sectors that they inspect, and they'll continue to look closely at the progress that learners make in reading at all stages. They're enhancing the way they look at this, and they develop their inspection activities to support them to gather evidence and to report more clearly about the standards of children and young people's reading skills. They are, as the slide reminds us, have explained that they're going to have a sharper focus on the quality of provision for reading. So they say, as that they will understand that the most effective examples of teaching and learning reading involve a range of different methodologies, and that's really important. They, like Welsh Government, and of course we are at pains with our support work, we don't advocate any particular approach, but that schools choose the range of approaches that they use to suit the needs of the learners in your schools. And that's what Estin will be looking for. What do you choose to use to support the progress that your learners make? They'll be enhancing their focus to look at the approaches to develop reading, how well these support Welsh and English learning, but also across the curriculum. They will also look at how well schools promote impact and support that culture of reading for pleasure and for success. Estyn will also be considering how well leaders secure improvements in that provision to secure standards in reading. They explain that they'll have discussions with leaders about how they prioritise and plan to improve reading and consider the impact of this work, the impact on improving provision and on standards. They also, through that enhanced focus on reading, will highlight strong practice and support for improving reading so that they can share that more widely across Wales with schools. So alongside their inspection activity, Estyn will share their insights from working across Wales, and that they intend to continue to publish materials, podcasts, thematic reports and findings, but probably most importantly, most interestingly for you in schools and for us, is to share where they see that effective practice to support that across Wales. And I'll return to this later in the session, but our network meetings next year are really going to focus in on your role as leaders of literacy in schools and how we can support each other to enhance your role as leaders to ensure that progress of learners, ensure that you are clear about the methodologies that you're using, understand why you choose the methodologies that you do, but most importantly, the impact that has on pupils in terms of provision, but standards. So our work over the next year will very much dovetail with the work that Estyn are going to do. And on the slide there, I know that from my conversations with colleagues in schools over the last couple of months, many of you will have seen the Estyn Live recording that went out a couple of months ago, but if you haven't and you'd like to look at that, it's well worth a look. Estyn, the inspection team, talking about that enhanced focus on reading, and you can hear it from them, why they are and what they're intending to do. But again, the summary is there in the link on screen as well. And just to build on that, and by way of introduction to our first school sharing this afternoon, I just want to remind you and reshare, I guess, the Education Endowment Foundation's Reading House visual. This research-based model shows that the goal of teaching reading is to enable pupils, children, to comprehend written text, both in an English curriculum and across the curriculum. To do this, pupils need to build both word reading skills, which we can see on the left-hand side of my house there, and those language comprehension skills, so that they read text, print, and on screen with understanding. As we say, that's what we're aiming for. You'll be familiar with the house, I'm sure. So to build word reading and language comprehension skills, the house illustrates that both of these strands are underpinned by a number of building blocks. And I mention and return us to this house because those building blocks are going to be the reference point, I think the starting point for the first of our practice sharing this afternoon. So the building blocks of word reading are phonological awareness and that understanding of print knowledge, and those early building blocks to support language comprehension, the grammar and the understanding, the syntax and the meaning that's associated with the grammar of reading, and that knowledge of vocabulary. So for those of you that are familiar, you'll be familiar with that context, but the link is on the slide if any of you, this is a new model. It's well worth a look to think about the breadth of that reading in the primary phase. So by means of introduction to the very wonderful Claire Welsh, who's joining us this afternoon from Maindee Primary School, Claire has been a supporter, and they have, Maindee Primary have been a partner school for a number of years now, always sharing really high quality and practical experiences of the work that they do in their school. So Claire, I'm not going to witter on, I'm going to let you carry on, and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
I won't do my usual trick of not leaving keeping my mic off for 10 minutes first. Hi everyone. As Catherine has said, so thank you for that, Catherine, that's really kind. I'm at Maindee Primary School, but all the messages that I'm sharing at the moment, I'm also working across Newport Nursery School. And I have to say, being in a standalone nursery school and thinking about all the things that I'm going to share with you this afternoon are absolutely like, I don't know, it comes to life even more just being in that standalone setting, because I think as a school, we're always thinking, if we've got a nursery attached to that, we're always thinking about, right, what do we need to do now to get these children ready to go into reception? And I think because schools often have a very systematic and well thought out approach to phonics, you're sort of doing that bit almost before you should be doing it or could be doing it. So part of what I'm going to talk about today is that. But the first slide, it says at the top, what does the research say? This is not, you can't talk about reading without talking about oracy. And I just thought if everyone can have just a couple of minutes just to read through some of those. I will read a couple as well, because I can't leave a silence. But if you have a little look through and just think about which one sort of resonates the most. Maindee Primary School is a very multicultural school with it's a very, very diverse background. But some of these really resonate with us. They may not resonate with you so much, but what is the sort of figure there, or the fact that sort of sticks with you? And I just wanted someone just to say, what is something that, just give me one of them. Which one stands out the most or resonates with you the most? Someone give me something. By the age of 3, children from a privileged family hear 30 million more words than children from underprivileged backgrounds. In areas of deprivation, 50% of children start school with language skills that are below the national average. Are there any that sort of go, oh my gosh, I would never have thought it was like that? What do you think, Catherine? Are there any that are new to you or stand out and you think, wow?
I think the thing that as Kate has just put in the chat there, that 30 million more words is a terrifying number. I was lucky enough to go to Hay last week and listen to the Children's Laureate in England, Frank Cottrell Boyce, talking about some work that he's been doing. And that figure is terrifying, the deficit for some of our learners before they even set foot in school, but also what that means in terms of the extra input that is required to get them on a level playing field is phenomenal.
And loads of people are pretty much saying the same. That's the one that stands out the most. 30 million words is a massive, massive gap. And if you think about lots of our schools now, the diversity of our schools is changing. The languages that children are speaking is changing. So they might have that deprivation in 2 languages. Then we've got like 2 holes to fill. So our job at Maindee particularly has to start with their oracy and the vocabulary and how we're modelling, how we're engaging the children in language. So that's kind of where we've come from, because we can't get reading right until we've got that oracy basis right. Children will not be able to pick up that phonic, your sort of traditional read, write, ink until they've done all of that legwork first. So if we click on to the next one, Catherine, this is a great book. So based on that 30 million word gap, early language delays. If you have early language delays, what they're all saying in this book is a great book, Reaching the Unseen Children. If you haven't read it, even if you read some of the pre-seed chapters, it sort of summarizes every chapter for you as you go along. It's really, really interesting, and it gives you some really easy, like quick fixes on what you can do in your classroom setting to sort of bridge the gap between. But if I jump between the very beginning, where it talks about early language delays will often lead to academic failure, truancy, and exclusion from school. So although we all go, wow, that's a huge gap, the reality is that's what's happening. So unless we do that job really effectively, the ultimate end result is going to be children dropping out of school because they've fallen so far behind. And yes, they've done that sort of, they've learned to read, they've learned to write, but the struggle has been absolutely massive. The likelihood is they'll still end up in that position at the end, which is just another frightening fact. So I'm not here to scare you. Let's talk about lovely things as well. But the unseen children have limited oral language skills, which leads to a sense of powerlessness. They have difficulty regulating emotions. And then that's when you end up with that trajectory that we see at the top. And I think we'll probably all notice that behaviours are changing in schools, and we're having to think more about children's well-being and relationships before we can even start the teaching. And oracy just runs like so closely with relationships. So I'm going to stop talking about that bit. Next slide, please, Catherine. Okay. The book also talks about, and this is why I talked about the sort of shackles feeling like they've been taken off in the nursery a little bit, because we're not thinking about, oh gosh, these children are going to go into a read write ink group in September. I need to start teaching like formal phonics. And it got us to think more mainly about, do we over support the children in class? And why do we over support them? Because we're trying to get them to an end goal sometimes that they're not quite ready for them, which then reduces their sense of capability and independence. So it really just stopped us in our tracks a bit and really thought about, what is it what's the diet that we're giving? Can we slow it down a little bit? What can we do to slow the pace instead of going straight into phonics? So in the next few slides, I'll start talking about that. But in the book, it talks about high quality teaching, obviously. It talks about relationships. It talks about oracy. It talks about collaboration. It talks about teacher language. It talks about many, many, many things before it even talks about the sort of the bones, if you like, of actually teaching phonics. Skip over for me, Catherine. Okay. This bit links back to that 30 million words. And it's quite a nice image to keep in your head when you're struggling with children making progress, to think, do you know what? I've got to build the net up first so they can catch the stuff. We all know, when we've talked in the past about, we used to talk about like vocabulary reels, or you might have vocabulary grids where you start with one word and then they're building out. Some of the children don't have the base word to build from, so you can't build. It's like, you know, it's like lots of things we talk about. You can't build on anything if your foundations are not solid. So again, some children, the 30 million words at home children, are coming in with a nice full net. The children that don't have that have got that really empty net, and we're starting in that position where we're expecting them to have a full net. So it's not about lowering your expectations. It's about thinking about, we want them to be here. We've got to do all this groundwork first. Okay, go on, Catherine. You've all seen this before. Reading and writing floats on a sea of talk, so let's ensure more conversations. I think sometimes when staff, particularly, you know, when you go higher up through the school, it's almost like there's a feeling there isn't time for conversation because there's so much other thing, there's so many other things going on. It's not just about like general chat, it's about scaffolding that chat. But this is the basis of good early years practice and good leading into reading practice. Good literacy floats on a sea of talk, says James Britton. And so say many of us. We all say it, but I think the curriculum is so full sometimes you don't always have time to like slow things down. To be a confident reader, you need to be a confident talker. Nurseries need to be a hive of conversations with children and staff playing, talking and listening to each other, teaching children how to converse, how to interject, listen and respond critically. We also need to use routine and resources to extend and embed literacy language. I don't know what the sort of the landscape is like in your schools, but in Maindy particularly, what we do really well is we teach the mechanics of reading really, really well. But what we also say is, do you know what? They've got that bit, or they're a PM16, but their comprehension's really not there. So again, it's made us think about, it's not just progressing through those levels, it's about making sure that we've taken the time to step back, discuss, teach those skills that enable them to talk about text, and also knowing, do they know all the language that is within it, or are they just simply decoding what they're seeing? Okay, Catherine. I flagged this in. I'm aware that this is a literacy network meeting, but I can't talk about what I'm talking about. There may, without referencing this document, you may, hopefully many of you have seen it. If you haven't, and it's not something that's being used in your school, it's definitely something to think about. It's the curriculum for funded non-maintained nursery settings, but this is absolutely like the gold standard of the curriculum really that we're looking at. So Newport Nursery use that, lots and lots of nurseries and early years settings. It's actually recommended as excellent practice for nurseries, but also very, very good practice leading into your reception classes, because as we know, we're not talking about specific age groups anyway, we're talking about that sort of timeline when children are developmentally ready. But it's just really, it's a really, really good document, and it highlights everything that I'm talking about. You'll be able to find sort of the skill set, if you like, within that document. Just a quick like hands up, or I don't know how we can do a count, Catherine. Do schools know about this document, and is it being used in this in your schools? Yeah, I've got a couple of thumbs up. Great. Lovely. And if you're not, it's just something to sort of maybe ask about in terms of your early years colleagues, just to see what's happening. Okay, next slide. So one of the key things that I pulled out when you're talking about, again, is early years practice. However, at Maindy, we pocket this all the way through, because children who've missed out on those early experiences don't have those experiences at home. They're not read to at bedtime. Thank you, Ellis, who said we absolutely do. It's fundamental. And if we're not doing it, then please flag it. Actively engage me in stories, songs and rhymes from my own culture and that of others. It's about giving the children that really rich diet as best as we can. If they're not experiencing those things at home, we need to give that. And if they haven't experienced, some children join our schools like middle of year 4, you'd obviously have to approach it in a slightly different way, but they still need to hear stories. They need to be read to, read by, and read with. And that sort of phrase has been going for years and years and years, but keeping those key things in your head. Okay, Catherine. Okay. We should model a joyful approach to learning. So this section is taken from that document. It's page 8, and it's about enabling adults. And the book that I referenced right at the very beginning about the unseen child, peppered all the way through that book is adults are the most expensive resource that we've got, but is also the one that is most accessible. You don't need to change anything. You don't need to go out and find anything, make anything, they're there. Using your enabling adults is absolutely key. So modeling a joyful approach to learning, encourage and support children's natural curiosity, making the best use, and this is the key word, of the teachable moments. So in a way that's really, really difficult, because you're not sure what's going to come up. You're not sure what that is. But if you know that you've got staff who understand sort of the premise of conversations within your nursery or earlier setting, they will know to capitalise on that, and they'll be able to extend children's language. So in the past, at Maindy, and I'm sure lots of your schools are the same, and at the nursery, there were intervention groups withdrawn. You'd identify your children that were really struggling. In the nursery, we've completely come away from that, and it's more about your interventions. You know, children who have SALT intervention, you know, children who are struggling with retaining certain information. It's done within, so staff know what the sort of needs are and what the skills are to be improved upon, but they're not withdrawn for those things anymore, because what we found is that children like shut down. They almost knew they were failing. That's why they needed to go into a special little group. So it's just about teaching moments, but also understanding what it is that we're trying to achieve within that. Okay, Catherine. Okay, we can skip that one. This is the bit that I wanted to talk about. So if you haven't accessed this document, this is the bit, Catherine, I'm worried that the links might not work. This is the Early Literacy, the Education Endowment Foundation. Many of the slides that I'm looking at are they're based on that document. So if any of my slides aren't clear and you want to do a bit more research into it, go into that link and you will be able to find everything that I'm talking about. There is a caveat with that. Some of the videos, you sort of think, well, they've only got 2 children there, or these look really old-fashioned. Kind of strip that back from your thinking and look at exactly what's being done in those videos. I am hopeful, and I am absolutely sure that you'll say, yeah, we do loads of that. We do loads of that. And I'm hoping that the presentation will just be capitalising on what's already going really well in your schools, and thinking about maybe how to bring more of it in, if that's not happening. So that link will take you to every resource. And if you skip on, Catherine. Okay, there are different sections within that. The first is about interactive reading. And I think for me as a practitioner, I needed something to hook that onto. Otherwise, I ended up doing kind of the same things every time I was looking at a text with the children. So it basically breaks it down. When you're doing interactive reading, what are the things that I can be doing to model really good language? So I can be thinking aloud. I can be questioning. I can be clarifying, summarising. I can predict something and recall. I can label things with the children. I can perform or use performing cues with the children. I can co-read with them, and I can make links. And although I'm sure if you were to video yourselves delivering a story or reading with a group of children, you probably do lots of those. But for me, it was just useful to sort of have that as like a bank of reminders about when I'm reading that text, I'm going to think about some of these things, because right at the beginning, if you don't teach those things, the children aren't able to do that much later on when we're expecting them to do that and with higher level reading skills. I'm hoping that on the next slide we'll be able to click in, but we might not. There is, probably need to go in. So there's an interactive reading section, and within that, there's a gentleman called Adam, and he does the monster song with the children. If this works, and it may not, Catherine, the idea is that we're looking at that together. And we're looking at what aspects of interactive reading does Adam incorporate into the session. So if you go, Catherine, it might open the window. So go back to the last slide. You should be able to click on the hyperlink underneath interactive reading. So right at the top, that should be a hyperlink. Is it?
Yeah, it's opened, but outside of the presentation, unfortunately.
We still hear it though, Catherine. So if you go to interactive reading and click on Adam and the Monster Song, we might be able to still hear it.
Let me have a look.
If this works, guys, and I'm conscious you're all sat beautifully listening to me find a link, but if you sort of start reading through the thinking aloud, the questioning, the clarifying, all those sections, if we can hear it, hopefully you'll be able
Any
to
second now.
What it is he's doing. So you have to listen really carefully.
Can you hear him?
We can't hear him.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear him?
Yeah. It's because it's outside of the
Okay.
presentation. Sorry, folks.
If you're looking at this, though, as a focus, if you go back into this presentation, I genuinely find it really useful to do with staff, because we looked at this together and they highlighted all the things that staff member in that setting was doing. And they said, oh, we do that really well, but actually I wouldn't have thought to do that. And what it did highlight in the video is he clearly has come back to that rhyme with that group of children over a prolonged period of time. So it's about that slowness and making sure there's time to revisit it. And what he wasn't doing was calling like a specific group of children and making them do that rhyme. He was adapting that and knowing, right, this group of 3 children, which was like the laughable bit was there's only 3 children. It's very rarely only 3, is it? But he had his 3 children, and clearly that was a song that they were enjoying and they were engaged with. And he then was able to really hone in on what he was modeling. So anyway, that's unfortunately going to be the same for the next set of things, but I'll briefly sort of explain them to you. That basically all the 4 areas that I've taken from the EEF, they all look like that. So then there are other examples within it, and it tells you what that thinking aloud looks like. So there's more examples within the framework, and it gives you examples of how that adult is summarising, how they're predicting and recalling. But genuinely, it's a really nice resource to just look through with staff to give you some talking points about how perhaps you can change that practice or adapt your practice. So if we keep going. Okay, the next bank is around teaching sound discrimination. So what is it that we can do when we're reading text with children to teach sound discrimination? So often, again, this is the bit that I certainly have got wrong in my practice before, where you've immediately gone into, I need to start teaching phonics. We don't need to do that. We need to tune into sounds. So we're naming and we're labeling, we're classifying sounds, we're mimicking and generating sounds. So it's just about chances to play and do rhymes and singing and tuning into environmental sounds. And again, I keep saying that word of just slow things down. Identify patterns in sounds, and then completion. So again, when they've got to that familiar stage in maybe rhymes and songs or books that you're doing, leave the gap. What's missing? So all of those stages that will help them with phonics learning later can be done in a slightly different way earlier. Catherine, I hope I'm making sense, because it's difficult when we can't go into the links. Tell me if I need to.
Yeah, no, you absolutely are. But it's that foundation of the phonics. It's what happened, what they need before the phonics, and that's why I thought this was so important to Leeds. Is that you start the phonics, but without this, it clearly embedded, then the phonics scheme, you're on a hiding to nothing.
You are. And I think what we found was, and your schools may be very, very different to this, but I would imagine there's probably a pocket or maybe a few groups of children that like this. We would do sort of their phonic checklists, and we'd be like, oh God, they've made like no progress, or they've only got 1 sound. And we were like, well, how do we but we knew, because we were doing some of this other stuff, we knew they were making progress. It just didn't show when we were looking at more traditional methods of tracking what their phonemic development was like. So we really had to go back. We did put a tracking document in place, and I'll talk about that later. We've since scrapped that because you don't need that. You just need to make sure they've had this lovely diet of stuff beforehand. So this, so that Sarah and the Animal Antics is the one that I picked out. So when you were listening to that, and all she's doing, she's reading a farm book, and as she's going through, she's doing the things that you would naturally do as really good early years practitioners. You're making the sounds, you're encouraging the children to join in, you're being daft with your voice, but she's obviously bringing in that sound discrimination aspect into that text. but she knows that that's really important. I think sometimes there's such a rush to get through the text, or the text is done at the end of the day before home time, instead of being used as part of just your lovely nursery or early years practice, or practice throughout the school. It doesn't really matter where you do it, as long as you don't get laughed at too much by the children older than that. So the next part, again, when you've watched Sarah and the Animal Antics, you would be looking at what is it she's doing to name and label sounds. How are they classifying? How are they mimicking and generating sounds? So it really is just something as a talking point. And then there are other examples. So the last one there, when it talks about completion, it says Chris and 2 children are at her home-based setting using some blocks and some small world figures. They're recreating one of their favourite stories and have built some houses with the blocks. Chris takes a wooden figure and starts to say, little pig, in the hope that the children have sort of internally rehearsed and remembered that story and are able to fill in the gaps, because until children can do that, they're not going to be able to do some of the later skills. Okay, there's another one, teaching sound manipulation. And again, this all comes before that formal phonics teaching. You need to experiment with sounds, you need to comment on it, you need to emphasize, you need to repeat, you need to break it all down, decompose. I need to spark and tempt children in the way to support children in manipulating sounds. And again, you'd go into that EEF framework, you'd go to teaching sound manipulation, and if you click on the next slide, you will see Fliss and TikTok grandfather clock. Now, we laughed at this one because Fliss is outside and she's just singing TikTok, and she's literally getting the children to bash the beaters together and stop and pause and wait. And what she's actually teaching is like listening and attending, as well as that that rhythm and pattern and all of those lovely things that you also need to build up. And again, it looks quite old-fashioned what she's doing, but sometimes old is gold. So they are definitely worth a little look at. And again, when you watch that video, if you take a bit of time then to look at what aspects of sound manipulation is she incorporating into the session, you'll be able to pull out everything that she's doing and probably suggest improvements for what she could do next, because I know that there are probably things you think, oh, I would do that as well, because you know how to build it on. Okay. And again, there are more examples in sound manipulation. I think there's about 4 different videos, and you can go in and you can talk about, for example, there's an example of repetition. The children in Erin's reception class know that when Erin claps a rhyme, they stop what they're doing and they return the rhythm. And they're little lovely things that are not necessarily pre-planned. She's just got an idea in her head that she's going to do that as part of the day, but it really supports the children to stop, engage and respond. And those things are really important. But honestly, some of these things are so simple, and if you just take a little bit of time, you can weave them straight into your sessions. Okay. And the final one, mapping sounds and letters. So again, this is a bit more drawing into now. We're coming a bit up more closely. We're more closely tied into what your sort of phonics might look like. So again, there's examples in there, mapping sounds and letters. And if I remember rightly, this little video is an early years nursery practitioner. She's out in the garden. They've got tadpoles on the table, and the children are talking about the tadpoles, and they've got their name cards next to them. She has actually called a group of children, and she's just modelling how to identify sounds at the beginning of words. You need to see the videos, and I'm sorry they're not playing, but they're very, very simple. And I think when you sort of not worried, maybe thinking about, you know, in the early years, what kind of conversations are happening with the children. If you're building into phonics, these are really simple things that staff can go away and sort of think about using in their everyday practice, but it's really, really informal. And then again, there are more examples under that mapping sounds and letters. What could it look like? So discussing spelling patterns, recapping on what the children. So there's an example there. Children are given multiple opportunities at different points during the nursery day to learn and practice recognising the appearance of their name. When they arrive, they find their name on the coat peg, they self-register. In the small world, blocks have photos of the children and their names on to enhance and build narratives alongside their constructions. So it's just thinking a bit differently how you can map it into your environment rather than it being like a separate added on thing that it sometimes becomes later on. Okay. There was also another fantastic book that breaks, basically before you get to phonics, it breaks down the 4 stages that need to come before that. They tie very closely into all those examples. So I won't spend ages talking about this, but it's tuning into sound. So there's developing auditory awareness. There's a book called, if you click onto that one, it's fine, Catherine. sorry, back one. Auditory awareness. There's a document there. And again, I'm hopeful that when this goes onto the site, you'll be able to click into all of that. But it talks about before they can be expected to hear the individual word and sounds within the word, children must learn to differentiate the sounds that they hear around them and respond to streams of words in ordinary speech. I've put the page examples again. This book here, L is for Sheep, is another great book to look at. But there's 3 aspects to auditory awareness. So again, when you're thinking about, I don't really know, like, what would I focus on? I'm sure you're not thinking that, but I sometimes did. General sound discrimination is your environmental sound. So like if you hear that helicopter going over, you'll be jumping outside with the nursery class, wondering where it's come from. You might, you know, do a specific activity around that. Aspect 2, general sound discrimination. Again, links to your instrumental sounds. So that's where like that fliss, what's it called? Fliss Floss and the grandfather clock or whatever it is. She's just tapping and she's building like music into a session. The more musicality and beat and rhythm that you can get into your nursery day, how much do your children love music? Mine love it. As soon as you get the instruments out, they want it and they want to do more. So bringing that into it is great. And then body percussion. We used to do this all the time. You'd sit around in a circle and you'd be doing like different body. Children also love that. I even remember being a child and we'd sit and we'd clap out the syllables in our names, but building those in, like they said about that teacher who was just clapping a beat and a rhythm and expecting the children to respond back to that. It's just a really, really quick, nice job. But she could be doing that with any parts of her body, couldn't she? So that's just a couple of examples of what auditory awareness could look like. Then the next stage, and these are sort of progressive, is rhythm and rhyme. Again, going back into musicality, listening to those rhythm and beats. One of the key stages of phonological awareness is the ability to discriminate syllables, the beats within a word. If you can't do that, you will find it very, very difficult to discriminate sounds in words. Appreciation of rhythm also leads children to recognise rhyming patterns, critical for the learning of phonics. So again, if your heads are saying, why are you doing all this stuff and you haven't started a particular phonics programme, you can talk about the why. Okay, go on, Catherine. And again, within that, there are different aspects. It links to body percussion, which is aspect 3. So you can see this progression now. And then aspect 4, rhythm and rhyme. And again, their awareness of rhythm and rhyme and beat examples. One of our teachers did like a little, she identified a massive need in her year 1 class for children who were missing all of these stages. And anyone that came and did sort of the PL at Maindy, I used to put Emily in and be like, can you just model one of those sessions? And she'd just have the children up and singing and dancing. It might be like Sounds in the Jungle, but it was just a fun way. They don't know that they're building into phonics, and it was something they could do. They couldn't do the formal phonics, but they could do that bit and they could achieve. And then she'd have the other children lead in the sessions, and it was just a really lovely way. And then the next section is leading you into developing phonemic awareness. So some children, and many of your schools may be at these stages before, because you may be fortunate to have the children who've had the 30 million words and have had the nursery rhymes and the lullabies and the songs and listening to the radio, whatever it might be. Some children in the setting may already be interested in hearing initial letter sounds. They might have already been shown by their parents, like how to find the first phoneme in their name, and they might know what that looks like. This will often be linked to their own name. So Luke is like Lydia, and so is like Lucozade. And anyone who does read writing will know that's one of the fundamental parts that when you're introducing new sounds to the children. But they should also be encouraged to make these associations orally and hourly, as well as just identifying them. So having many more opportunities, you know, as a teacher used to go, oh God, they know that now. And then they couldn't apply it elsewhere. So if you're starting to think, if those children are sort of flagging to you, oh, I thought they knew the letter P, but they can't apply it anywhere else. They can't find it anywhere else. It's only that they know it because they've been drilled into knowing that so well. So it might be that they need a little bit more of this stuff before you sort of keep going with it. Okay. And I think, Catherine, there is elements from the non-maintained framework. It does talk about sustained shared thinking and how you can create this environment. Using sustained shared thinking is important. And it's what I said to you about those teachable moments, the adults being aware of the children's interests and their understanding. If they're interested in it, they'll probably engage more with the language that you're talking about. And the adults and the children really working together to develop an idea or skill, rather than the adult like imparting something that they feel they need to know. So it just the sustained shared thinking model is just in there to sort of connect with those teachable moments. To the next one, Kath. This one is great. I've had staff you can sort of see that when they're in the setting, they're just not always sure like what to do unless there's an activity that they're engaging with and they're delivering. They're not sometimes sure how to engage in conversations. So I quite like this, the effective interaction hand. And what is it you can do if you just keep these sort of 4 things? You ask one question and up to 4 of the following. So you'd comment on what's happening, you'd repeat, you'd expand, and then you might give an explanation. And if you can keep that little model in your brain every time you engage, you might not do all of them, and you certainly wouldn't like force the issue if they've lost engagement. But if you've got a group of children who are really interested in something and you think, oh, this is a lovely opportunity to expand their language, it's quite nice to keep those 4 key elements sort of at the tip of your fingers, literally, to remind you, what can I do? I can comment on what they're doing. So I'm trying not to kill the play, but it's okay if I sit alongside and comment. I'm not necessarily joining in. I'm not suggesting an alteration. I'm just commenting and maybe naming some of the things that they're doing that they might not know the names of. Does that make sense, Catherine? I hope so. Okay. And then 8 top tips for promoting talk with young children. This, again, is another really old book. It's One Step at a Time from Anne Locke. The reason I flagged it is because we don't necessarily in our school withdraw children for something called One Step at a Time, because it became quite like false and like hard work to do that. But the core principles within it are really good. So top tips: create a context, comment on the activity, talk with, not at the child, reflect and expand, don't overload, be personal, avoid correcting and don't cross-examine. And if you're able to do those things really well, pepper through your day, their confidence in language will improve, and therefore their chance of success with phonics and reading will hopefully improve as well. And I think, Catherine, we're really close. Yeah. This bit I taught very briefly. There's more to reading than just decoding, and that reading and understanding requires a more complex, deeper understanding of language and vocabulary. So I guess what I'm asking you to think about is, does phonics start potentially too formal, potentially too soon? Do we need to go back and sort of think about the pre-stages first? Are there children higher up in the school, perhaps in sort of the top end of your lower phase or maybe early end of your upper phase, who are reading, but they're really not confident readers because actually maybe some of the fundamentals and response to comprehension can't be done because some of the other blocks are missing. So the conversations around text are missing. So that's what I'm kind of coming to with that. And that part there about read to and read with. Why is the modelling of reading essential? It's an opportunity for children to see the reading process, and all of the stages that I've talked about are all about the teacher being that really, really valuable adult and modelling really effectively what it is you want the children to eventually be able to do. And if the teachers almost need to be like absolutely brilliant at this in the hope that the children will become good at it. So if you give them a fantastic model, they'll hopefully take like 75% of that. How do we do it? Sorry, go back one more time. Allow the children to hear a story more than once. I am sure everybody does that. And if you don't, sometimes people are like, oh, they've read that before. You sometimes need to just keep going with it because you'll think, oh, they've switched off. And then by day 4, all of a sudden they develop the confidence to start joining in with those repeated phrases. Even better if they've already had the story at home. This may be part of classroom practice and woven into your daily timetable. People have asked me before, but how do you do that? And there are other ways, consider the following: using volunteers, students, parent helpers, an opportunity for children who want to reread either as small groups or individually. You could do target sessions, such with a teacher or member of staff, or with older children in the school, because I think nursery and reception is a slightly different beast. I think it becomes a little bit more difficult the higher up with the pressures of other curriculum aspects. But if you can weave that in, then brilliant. There's also, I think I've left them in, we've created sort of a bank of audiobooks. So when you click on any of those links, it will take you to the video links for the stories. Would I prefer the children to have the hands-on text? Yes, I would. But in absence of that and wanting the children to go and have an opportunity to re-listen to some favourite text, we've just got these on like QR codes and they can go and scan them. they can have the bookshelf on the big whiteboard, they can go and take them, pop their headphones on, and usually they will go to the ones that they love or the ones that they've most recently read or one that they love from home. So they're just a really nice way. So when you click on any of those, they hyperlink directly to the stories. And then I've also done, these are all, so I'm very passionate and a little bit crazy when it comes to making songs and rhymes fit to whatever we've started talking about. So obviously, most schools have got themes or topics. Mainly predominantly in the early years follow Seize the Season, so it's very much dictated to on that. So there's lots of songs around like vegetables and pumpkins and rain and snow and all of those stuff. So when you click into that, what you'll hear though is me creating like a song about a pumpkin, but it'll be sung to a traditional nursery rhyme. So again, you are welcome to have a look at those. Some of them hyperlink to videos from YouTube, but I when I tell you I spend a long time making sure it's perfect for what I want, they're a really nice bank that I'm kind of happy for you to steal if you can access them. And then I've just put a SoundCloud link into Polidori Story because again, if you need a starting point, that's quite a nice starting point to go from. And then I think, yeah, too many young children, print is invisible. We've talked a lot about this in early years. We used to label everything, which I also see the value in, but it's making sure, like with anything else, if you're labeling something with the children, do it with them so they know what it is. And if you're putting up like signs to help them, so I always looked at this in the early years of, I know what the PM book sentences look like. I know what the languages in the early PM book will need to be. So I would just use that language peppered through the nursery environment in the hope that, you know, like every time I said, oh, go and get your apron, or here are the aprons, they'd start to go, oh, hang on, that's where that goes. Not all children will do that, but the adults need to know that that's there and that's why it's there. Otherwise, it just becomes that wallpaper. And all of that stuff is before you get to this bit, before you get to your synthetic phonics. Young children learning to read really is a majestic act of pattern and meaning making, so that we can too easily take for granted. And I always think about it like riding a bike. Now we can all, or predominantly most of us, will probably be able to ride a bike. It was never that easy when we first started. You fell off, you need to do things differently, you need your stabilizers. Phonics will get there for children, but you've got to do the adjustments first. And I think all of that stuff at the beginning is the adjustments. And I think, Catherine, that really is it. Yeah.
It is, Claire, and as always, phenomenal, phenomenally thorough look at those early stages. And the reason why I thought it was a thought of asking Claire to do this today, Claire and her school have been supporting as partner school for the last couple of years and have hosted events and training for teachers and TAs, looking in particular at the early reading skills and that provision. And as the Reading House shows, without those foundations, without the pre-phonics, we can, and again, I get asked by schools about starting phonics early, and what should be happening instead is providing that rich diet of pre-phonics so that they have all of those skills that are the foundations. So before I give you some time in breakout rooms to consider, you know, any reflections that you might like to share with colleagues online in a moment, any questions or comments, if you'd like to come on and speak to Claire or pop in the chat, then that would be fantastic. Fantastic resources. Thanks for sharing from Tom there, as always. Thanks from colleagues. Any questions? See, thorough, Claire.
I'm very talky, but I just wanted to put in right at the end is any schools that have had the support from Charlie Figueroa for intensive interaction for your children who have got additional needs. All of like, I watch staff in the nursery now, and then all of a sudden they'll just stop and they'll be engaging because the child has started to rock, and they'll do like row, row, row your boat. And you just think, that is it. That is it. It's just really, really simple. But that child will come away, they've had their sensory input, but they've also had a lovely rhyme alongside it, and they'll rehearse those things in their minds.
Well, Claire, people will have lots to say when they go into the breakout room, I'm sure. So in the meantime, can I just thank you hugely again? I know that you have to get away, and I'm really grateful for your time this afternoon. Clare and Maindee Primary are continuing to be a partner school next year. So as you go away and contemplate some of the things she's spoken about and think back to the practice in your own school, it may well be that you want to take up the opportunity to engage with Clare and Maindee Primary next year. So perhaps something to consider after today. So thanks so much, Clare.
That's okay. Thank you very much, Catherine. Bye.
Bye. So what I'll do, folks, is I'm just going to pop you into some breakout rooms so that perhaps you have an opportunity with colleagues from other schools to just reflect on the presentation from Clare, who shared some of their approaches to those kind of pre-phonics in the early years. You will have different settings and different situations in your schools, but and if you're not an early years teacher, you may well be relying on that knowledge in early years. Any reflections from you about that pre-phonics, the importance of pre-phonics and what that diet looks like in your school? And I'm going to pop you into some breakout rooms. You'll disappear for about 10 minutes. So I hope you all have access when you get there. So I shall see you in a moment. Oh, connecting. There we go. I think everybody's back. That's always a painless thing. Fantastic. Lovely to see you all back. I just wanted to give us an opportunity, if there are any conversations that you've had in your breakout rooms that you think are worthy of sharing more widely. I do think, and it's something that I do get asked about if I'm working with schools, is that perhaps rush for some children into the more structured, more systematic phonics teaching, where it's obvious that for some of them they don't have those foundations. I wonder if there were any queries, questions, or comments that came up in your breakout rooms that anybody would be willing to share with us. Any feedback? Thanks, Lucio.
Hi, Gav. We had
Hi, Doug.
a really nice debate with ours, well, a conversation, sorry. One school was very similar to ours at Penchpoeth, and we were saying that we noticed when certain children, like Claire said, had that family engaged approach and they had the extra language coming in, and you can spot the difference between the ones who have had that family engagement and the ones who haven't. And there was another school which was in our group which had a higher percentage free school meals, and they were saying how they're looking at the importance of play before all of the academics, because they're saying to have that sustained attention for a book or to sit there and listen to a story, they've got to be able to play and talk to each other first. So we were looking at different things and different schools and different sides of that area, which was a really nice conversation to have.
Yeah, thanks, Lucio. Again, it's knowing your learners, isn't it, and identifying the needs. And as the Reading House demonstrates, if children can't hear the difference between sounds because they haven't played with musical instruments, and they can't keep a rhythm because they can't clap in time, and they haven't got the physicality to do that, if they don't have all of those foundations, then they're not ready, and they're not going to be successful with the systematic phonics and those early decoding. So all of those approaches, those play-based approaches where the children are exposed to language and developing those sound discrimination and that hearing the difference in parts of words and so on, it's all valuable. It's all valuable. Any other comments that came up?
Hi, Catherine.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I think all what Claire said made so much sense, and I think it's going back to what we know, the needs of the child. But I think, like, we do read writing, which I think is great. I'm a great ambassador for, but I think we're like encouraged to start it straight away. And I think maybe we've actually got a development day next week, and I might say, you know, how do they feel about us not starting straight away? Because they need to settle down. You need to get to know the children a lot more and do some of these lovely activities.
Hi, Dee. Sorry, I didn't realise it was you before you started speaking. Hi. Yeah, and again, much of what Claire was speaking about, and you'll have been speaking about in the rooms, is about, you know, traditionally good nursery provision, that before they start in reception, and you have to, you know, because you do have to get on for you know, if you look at your cohort, you may well have a class full of reception who are absolutely ready, but you may not, and it's providing that additional layer for those children who are not ready. But also, if you are a school that has nursery, is making sure that, as Claire described, that nursery provision is absolutely about providing those opportunities to build the foundations, and they do involve listening out for the beginnings of words and ends of words, and being able to hear the sound in the middle and change the sound in the middle and the beginning and the end and so on. But there are so many other skills that need to happen before that. So I think it's very much dependent on the children in front of you, isn't it, Dee?
Yeah, and we've all got children like that in our classes, haven't we?
Absolutely. Yeah. And importantly, just because you're not in early years doesn't mean that you don't have those children. So you may well be, you know, a year two teacher and, you know, wonder about the struggles of some children in a lower ability group who may well have gaps in that, and it's being able to enhance that provision. Hi, is it Gemma?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry. I was
hi,
in
Gemma.
breakout route, but it's just to add, obviously, because we're in a really tough school, but it shows the impacts. Obviously, lots of our children now in year 4, 5, and 6, they were in the early years during COVID. So a lot of ours come to school with very poor vocabulary, and it's showing the damage that's done and the impact that's had to our current year 4, 5, and 6, because we're having to go back and teach those skills to our current year 6 pupils. They don't hear rhyme, they have no ability to do it. So we have got interventions now in the afternoon where every single child in year 4, 5, and 6 has a reading intervention, and it's involving those type of games, because it was completely missed from their early years because they were at home and they didn't have that. So, and then they weren't exposed to anything, and we've never had such poor readers in our school. Not poor decoders, they can decode, they cannot understand.
Oh, so it's the comprehension side of the house.
When we still got quite a significant amount of children on precision teaching in juniors. We've still got children in year 6 who are at ditty level, in that sense. But I think there's only about 3 or 4 in my current year 6 who have a reading comprehension age that is appropriate. So we have to build that, and it's not just because of COVID, there's other things going on, there's lots of neurodiversity going on, but you can see in everything, their fine motor skills, everything about them, it's where they miss those crucial early years. So that's what we're trying to really make it a big focus for us in our early years to get it right.
Absolutely. And again, you will find in most schools in our region that they're having to deal with cohorts of children who are, for one reason or another, slightly different, and amend that teaching and learning to suit those children. So something like the house, something about that importance of every member of the teaching staff and teaching assistants having that understanding of that breadth of reading experiences and skills that they need, starting with that foundation, because again, that's no longer just the business of our 3 and 4 year olds, as you say. Most teachers, I think, through schools will say that they're plugging gaps. So thanks for that, Gemma. Yeah, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to just comment before we move on? Okay, so I'll speak again at the very end of the session about our intentions for our network meetings next year, and perhaps I can share with you some of the glimpses of some of the materials that we're going to be able to offer next year for reading. But before we go on to our next presentation, I just really want to, it's a request. So in my work in schools over the last, well, certainly 6, 7 years, I'm occasionally asked about tackling the tail, the literacy intervention that for many years was used in the vast majority of schools in Newport, and since the beginning of the consortium and the EAS, many schools in our region using tackling the tail as a literacy intervention, predominantly with year 1 learners, to help them develop their phonics, their fluency, their comprehension, and catch up, if you like, catch up early so that those gaps are filled. So this is a request really for any of you who work in schools where you have those resources in school. You may not be using them this year, but you know that those you have those materials in school, or you may be using them this year. Your teaching assistants or teaching staff might be dipping into those resources. I'm looking into the possibility of building a set of resources and perhaps offering some school-to-school practice sharing next year, as it is something that I am asked for. So what I'm just about to pop in the chat, there it goes, is a little form, and the link is on the slide as well for when you get those later on. If any of you are in schools where you know that you either have the resources or have the resources and are using the intervention this year, could I ask you to spend just 1 minute filling that in, just so that I can start to have a record of schools that are using it, and it asks your permission to come back to you, perhaps to find out a little bit more information later in the year or next year. So that's just a plea really. So thank you for that. I'm really delighted that our next practice sharing comes from Fiona Davis at Killian Lodge Hill Primary School in Newport. Fiona, are you there?
I am, and I've got Chloe Blood with me because I can't steal it. Chloe is the person that started it in our school, Catherine. So wouldn't be fair not to invite her along.
Fantastic.
So,
Well, croeso to both of you. I'm really grateful for your time this afternoon. I'm going to click on the slides for you. So I'm just going to
Thank
say,
you, Catherine.
ladies, over to you. Diolch.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for letting us have this opportunity. So we spoke to Catherine because lots of people have come to our school already about Drawing Club. We can't see the presentation though, sorry. Can other people see it? Just want to check. It's not just us.
Yeah,
I can see.
Oh,
Oh,
It's
right.
bizarre,
Okay.
isn't it?
Let me just change so that you are not a presenter anymore. And that might help the situation. Can you see now?
No.
Ooh. Okay. Oh, somebody's got their hand up. Okay, so you're not a presenter anymore, so that should be okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to. Okay.
sometimes
just-
if it stops showing for you, if you click on the screen where you would normally see the presentation, it might come back up, or you just check your view. Maybe that's
Oh, thanks,
changed
I was
Anna.
for
going to say
you.
we can just see everybody else.
What about on
Oh.
there?
Okay. If you go to view, then maybe change it to focus on content, and then it should just share the screen for you.
It's not letting us click on that.
Oh.
Okay.
Let me
Fran-
just check whether or not you are. Yeah,
2
no, you
seconds.
back
Let
to
me just-
attend.
Let me just get it up on
We
our.
could get it up.
and
Okay,
then
fantastic.
we can just go and do it.
Oh, do you know what? It's these things are sent to try us. It's
Of course they
typical.
are. And we're
It's
not very
typical.
IT. That's why we're not on the
No.
IT score.
But you know what? I can guarantee that everybody else that's sitting here this afternoon is feeling for you and just not worried about it at all. So
No.
no problem.
There was a couple more people that can't
Yeah.
see it.
I don't know. Since we got from the breakout room, probably I was going to take forever to download. Sorry, everybody.
No, that's okay.
We were adding a few more minutes onto our presentation, see?
Oh, it's a shame because everybody else can see it. Well, everybody's just having a look at your front slide anyway.
It's taking its time.
Fine.
Fran.
Yeah.
So Fiona, you're the literacy lead.
Yeah. And then
And
Chloe,
Chloe?
the one. Chloe's in.
I'm a reception teacher.
Right, that's right.
Not even loading a minute, 2 seconds. It could be our computer now.
Oh, and it will be much slower because you're being watched, obviously.
Oh.
This is the way it works.
What if I log onto my Canva?
Oh, yeah. Look.
Does it go? Log on yours.
Get to it.
Everyone can get a cup of tea in a minute while they
Well,
while you
We'll
wait.
do a bit of text.
nobody's going to complain about a couple of moments, are they? Worth waiting for anyway, I know, because I've seen.
I hope you all think so. Okay, I can see at my end now
Yeah,
on our.
we can.
Fantastic.
So hopefully you're on the same slide.
Yes,
as us.
absolutely. Bringing Drawing Club to life.
Bringing Drawing Club to
Yeah.
life.
Amazing.
So should we go on to the next?
Yeah, so obviously this is just our journey. That's what we want to really stress
Yeah.
to everybody, that we're not saying we do it absolutely put our own spin on it. It's been really interesting what Claire was saying to us just a moment ago, because we felt we needed to scale back and we were rushing things. So we've been really lucky that we've been able to take on this.
Absolutely. So we noticed lots of children had those limited exposure to a range of quality texts and literature, and again, lack of vocabulary, things like that. Lots of children had a lack of resilience and reluctance to just have a go or take risks in their learning. We noticed lots of children, like especially going into year one, then had a limited understanding of story structure, underdeveloped pencil control and motor skills. Again, going to year 1, 2, and even further up the school, lots of difficulty applying basic writing skills. And then, as we said, restricted vocabulary due to limited exposure to varied language. So I came across, on the next page then, I came across a man called Greg Bottrell, and lots of people have probably heard of him. He introduced something called the Drawing Club, and I never did the training for it, but I saw lots of things online, so I did lots of research. I read his books, such as Can I Go and Play Now, and The Message Centre, things like that. And he's also got other things for the Drawing Club, which we've since gone on to research and had a look at, such as Story Dough and The Curious Quests. So in September 23, I started looking into Drawing Club for reception. So basically what Drawing Club is, it's not a scheme of work or anything, it's just an idea. So Drawing Club is an adventure which is based around the golden blend of picture books, tales and animations. It involves a short period of time together as a whole class, and then followed by time with children exploring their ideas and creativity. So how we've looked at it was, we introduced a new book every week, and like they said in the last presentation about recapping the book, so rereading the book over and over again. So I read the book most days, and then my teaching assistants are great, they'll read it, and then by Friday I was finding some of the books, the children were actually coming to the front and reading it to the children as well. So we focused on a new book every week. There was often a hook to engage learners, so we've done things like footprints in the classroom, or just something exciting that makes them want to read that book, or that we wrapped up the book and say, do not open me, and obviously then all of the children want to, oh, there we are, it's on you now. All of the children then, oh, can we open it? It's just like gaining that excitement. We focused on children drawing pictures before they're writing, and then when I first introduced it, it was just having a go in like the provision rather than a focused literacy session. So then,
so September 2024 then.
Yeah, so the next one
is when we looked at putting it in our literacy. So September 2023, I was actually on maternity leave. That's why I said I can't take Chloe's lovely idea. When I came back in September 2024, I actually went into a reception year 1 class, and Chloe was like, well, I've done this with my reception class and I want to. And luckily our head's very good and saying, have a go then, girls, see how it works. And we kind of had the blend straight away into year 1 because reception had already done it, so we kind of went into our both classes then, wasn't it, and used it as our literacy focus. So we would do at least 3 sessions a week on Drawing Club. Obviously, if you look into Drawing Club, Greg Bottrell does a lot of things, but obviously we picked what we needed for our school and our classes, because we already do phonics of different times and all that one. So then we would always look at like reading the story, we look at the character of the story, the setting of the story, and then we go on to an adventure. And we do this for every single story, for reception and partly year 1, but I can talk about the change. And then in the summer 2025, then we've put it into year 1 and year 2, and we were lucky to go on to the Curious Quest training. Again, we've taken it on our own little spin, which I would definitely recommend any of the training. And to be fair, it wasn't dear, it was online.
I think it's £30
and like we did it after, it was an after school, but like our head let us to have a staff meeting off to do that. So, you know, if you're it's something you are interested in, then I would definitely recommend, because he's got some fantastic ideas, and we are just on our journey really. We don't know what else we're going to be putting into it as we keep embedding.
No. So obviously I don't want to say like too much about it, because obviously he does provide the training, but we've basically taken it off. We do like vocabulary submersion every day, so we pick words out from the story and we introduce them to the children. Then I say we introduce the book and things like that, and then they go off to do their drawing then at the table. And then we've, as the year's gone on, we've started off as initial sounds, we've gone on to then CVC words, and then we've gone on to then captions and sentences. And there's so much, and the children, well, I'll show you now the benefits of Drawing Club. It's just raised engagement and motivation so much. All the children are really highly engaged because they're storytelling, and we found it really good for imagination and drawing, especially during adventure time, because we weren't telling the children what to do. It was their adventure, their ideas, and lots of time then we describe what they said, and the things they come out with were just,
and like noticing in year one with their adventure. Yes, I've got some children that go to Unicorn Land most times, but I can tell you from September to now, the detail and the work. And actually, if that's where their stage is, why am I telling them to write about, say, a football stadium that this child's got no interest in? We have just noticed we have got examples through in a bit of like the progress. That's what our big thing was, to make sure we had the progress and the coverage. And we're noticing our other topic and other learning. We're doing lots of different jobs on the writing and all as well. And it's just come on so much because they've got that basics as well. Do you want to go on to the next slide, because we've said about our benefits here, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh yeah, so we've said it develops like a love of stories and reading, because they're just more excited to read the story and to listen to the story, aren't they?
We're even having children bringing in books now from home, asking can we plan that in, because they think the character's really good, the setting's really good, and they've thought of an adventure already, you know. So it's definite ownership on their learning as well, which is amazing.
And we tried, like last year we looked at, like, had a big push on diversity, so we were making sure we had like a diverse range of books, and that's a great thing. You can choose whatever books excite you and excite your children,
and cover your topics and needs as well. And, you know, we were making sure our authors were like diverse authors as well. So it's kind of helped us. It's helped us as well, you know, especially the literacy lead in my team. I get asked to plan these books, and then sometimes you think, oh yeah, I just do that because I know children like that, and I do. Now it's like, has it got a good character we can has it got a good setting, has it got a range of settings, has it got a range, you know? So we're definitely trying to broaden the learning for all our people.
We've noticed like children introduced to like a rich and ambitious vocabulary, and given opportunities to talk and explain and perform, like we were saying. And we've noticed obviously like a huge strengthening in our writing skills. Supports the development of like sentence structure and basic grammar. And we had the discussion, like in especially like year 1, 2, even reception. Are we trying to do too much too early? Are we trying to get reception to write sentences before they're confident writing CVC words, even isn't it?
Letter formation, you know, because we're still having to correct in year 2. We were finding a lot of letter formation, and we were saying if we jumped a bit too many loopholes, and that need to go back. So this has made us be a lot more slower and know this is where we need and want to go with our children.
It's encourage children to like create characters and settings and adventures, boosting their creative thinking, build confidence and resilience, because children can work to their level and what they're confident with. So children feel safe to have a go, you know, they're drawing their pictures and having a go at taking risks and developing perseverance in their learning. And it supports their fine motor development, and it's inclusive and accessible to all learners. So I know like our learning resource base, they've adapted it for them in there.
Because once they've drawn their picture, they can talk about it. It's not you trying to tell them or them trying to memorize a story. You know, you're just giving them a pinpoint bit, you know. And we model, we'll always do the teacher modeling. The adventure one, I would say now in year 1 and 2, we do basic modeling, I would say, because what we were finding, some children just think that's is correct and wouldn't go off and be the independence. And we've worked a lot on creating independence. And I would say now, even if I do a story for pleasure, we tend to do that every day as well, a different story. My children by like the afternoon are then doing their drawing club in the craft area of their writing and drawing, because they just love it. You know, it has really changed us for the best in our school.
And then we've just got a couple of examples
gonna
to
say,
show then.
Do you want to go on, Catherine?
So this is just our progression. So this was a lower ability child in reception. So as you can see, he was just mark making at this point in the year. He wasn't forming any letters. It was just purely mark making. And then towards the end of July, he was being able to write letters and what's he written? Oh, pirate ship. So he's
got and you look at the detail of the drawing, there's definitely we've done lots, like I said, lots on drawing. I think sometimes you rush too quickly into they need to be able to write letters, but we need to get them to have that control with their pencil.
Yeah.
And we were saying that sometimes we never used to value the drawing.
No.
We used to say, oh, do your writing, then do your drawing, but we always do the drawing first. And I've got a class of 28 year ones, and obviously I've got a mixed ability, and all 28 can independently draw.
Yeah.
And I've got 24 out of 28 that independently now write. Obviously, it's the summer term, but they independently write what they want because we've kind of built this independence. So we're hoping as it goes further up the school, it'll get even better.
And then the next slide shows the same child now in year 1. So
he's moved into my class. So this is January 2026. And then we've actually done the retell of The Little Red Hen. Obviously, we use the words mats. We've got dictionaries our children absolutely love. If you don't use them, I definitely recommend the dictionary where you write, you know, they find the letter and you write. But because we've been doing it very repetitively, they've got the skills to be able to know that the capital letter. Obviously, this little is a little boy. He did make us smile because he keeps writing and obviously not finishing the line and going on to the next one. But, you know, he is only year 1 and would be one of our lower end children.
And then the next one, I think, is one of our middle ability children.
Yeah.
So again, the start of reception, she was drawing pictures and she could talk about the picture. And then end of the year, she was writing words independently. And you can just see the good progression in her pictures and everything. And then the following slide now shows her in year 1. And she's writing all this now. And like hit the detail in her pictures.
And obviously the Little Red Hen, I've only shown you a clip because we actually they've become authors, and I've wrote it because we got a class assembly and they're going to share it with it. And actually a lot of them are about 6 pages long, but I didn't want to put slides aside. But I'm more than happy if anybody is very interested, we can share something with you, but I just didn't want to bore you all now. But yeah, we've just noticed, as you can see, that massive difference, and having a good go, and it's just more for us for independence, knowing that capital letter full stop. And then if you go on, Catherine, this is a little girl that came to us in reception that had a good standard starting.
Yeah, right. She was writing sentences by the end of reception independently. And then year 1 now. Her pictures are just so detailed.
And she takes so much pride. They all take so much pride.
She's got her capital letters and full stops, hasn't she?
And we've even been doing speech in marks to write, because like we were talking about when you're talking a character, you know, so we've just noticed the definite difference for us.
And then what was on the last slide?
And the next one is, if going again, it's just, we want to show examples of drawings. Because these are children in year 1.
Yeah, these are year 1. Yeah, they're all year 1, aren't they?
Yes. And just the difference we were making, and we just noticed in our topic work and in the pride in what they want to do as well, and in their creativeness and in any activities they're doing. Even now, like me and Chloe have been lucky, we've both done football training, and like we're very big on all like advocating that in our class. And even like the block area now, the drawings and designs are all because they've got those skills of drawing. They're not scared to have a go.
No.
You know, so and I think that's all.
I think that was all we had on there, wasn't it? Yes.
Oh, thank you both so much. I knew very little about this, and once you shared that you shared this opportunity with me, I've gone away and done a bit of research. The next slide, I've just put a link to the website with a little bit of information about the Greg and his work, so that's there for everybody. Does anybody want to come on when you've got these ladies here and ask them anything about what they've been doing, how they've gone about it, anything at all?
What we was going to say, Catherine, if anyone
Yes.
does want to say anything or would like to, because we've had already a few heads, we have had people already in. If anybody would like to come and see us, have a chat, a phone call, we're more than happy to. Obviously, it is just our take on it in our school, but we are prepared. We know that it is a bit of a, sometimes I jump into it.
Yeah,
Can be a bit scary.
I've demonstrated lessons that people have come to watch, haven't they? And then it makes more sense when you see, oh, that's it in action.
So we are very happy. We're a very friendly team.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, it's just as well I've shared your email address then, Fiona. So fantastic. Any questions in the meantime?
Hopefully that makes sense.
Oh, it definitely made sense. Definitely made sense. I think for me, it's another example how we can't leave behind what we think is basic, but that enjoyment of engagement with story. And I think what you've said about the children building that independence and resilience to just have a go themselves, to respond to a story without waiting for instruction, to be told, and sort of modelling that process with them seems to me extremely valuable. No questions from Lucio, just to thank you. A couple more comments from people saying that they've really loved the progress that they've seen there. Thank you for sharing your practice. I feel like you might get a few emails off the back
and
of
that's
today,
absolutely fine. You're more than welcome, you know. Like I said, when we'd be really happy if anybody else is on this journey to share with us, because we're kind of thinking of, you know.
So we've got doing the Story Dough training next week for nursery. Just to see how, because I know it's obviously to do with reading stories and Play-Doh, just to see how we'd implement it into nursery. So just be interesting to see, won't it?
And we've definitely noticed a huge impact in our school.
Yeah.
And you can see that in that's just those few examples, and I'm sure if we spoke to the children they would tell us about the stories they've enjoyed, and absolutely.
So what we do as well, we've got I photocopy the front cover of the book, so I always have that up on the wall, and then once we've read it we've got like a timeline, so we've got all of the books that we've read through the year up on the wall, and also a box in our reading area of all the books that we've read. So like Kathy said earlier, they can go and revisit that in their own time, and they do.
Repetition so important. We mustn't underestimate the opportunity to go back to
all the time.
Of course they do.
And it's just lovely to see though, isn't it, that, you know, and especially because we're trying to tackle that lots of children aren't being read at home, and we're definitely seeing the impact.
This ticks a lot of boxes and seems like a lovely approach for sharing texts with children and having them respond. Thank you both so much for coming along today and to share that. And those slides, obviously people can access those slides and use the link and have a closer look, and then if they want to they can contact Fiona at Killian Lodge Hill. Thank you both very much.
Thank you
so much.
Yeah. Okay, so just a couple more from me here. The next thing, although obviously not linked with reading, this was something that's been coming up in conversations that I've been having in working with clusters, in working with 3 local authorities of the 5 in our region, thinking about developing whole school approaches to writing. We know that writing is a priority in pretty much every school, and an issue that kept coming up again and again was this the phrase that is used about extended writing. And so as a team we've been doing a little bit of work to come up with a common understanding across our team, our LLC team, particularly for English and for Welsh. And we wondered whether that might to draw on your expertise in a breakout room for just a couple of minutes in a moment. We know that ESDIN don't have a definition for extended writing and actually don't really tend to use that term, but instead talk about writing at length. But we also know that for you, your school improvement partners or your school partners, and the work that you do in school, we know it's a term that's used widely. So what I wanted to do was just give you an opportunity perhaps to reflect on that. As I say, we came up with a kind of draft statement that felt reflected our early thinking about this. And what we came up with, extended writing refers to writing in which pupils sustain composition independently, developing ideas into a coherent, purposeful, whole text outcome that is appropriate to audience and purpose. Now, that's quite wordy and it says a lot, but I think the term needs to be something that crystallizes what we all mean from extended writing. So what I wanted to do with some of that additional information on the slide there, what do we mean by sustained length? What do we mean by independent composition? What do we mean by developing ideas and coherence? We know that writing, always we have a purpose-led curriculum, and for writing we need our pupils, our children, to be able to understand why they're writing and who for, and often that's key to the type of writing that we expect from them. So what I wanted perhaps to do would be to provide you with this definition. I'm going to pop you back into a breakout room for just 4 or 5 minutes with your permission, and to ask you to perhaps look at this extended writing definition, and can you offer any work that perhaps you've done in your schools or settings to address this issue? Is this a statement that perhaps would be useful to you? Or are there additions, alterations? Is there any extra research that you might bring to this question? Because we'd like to draw on your expertise to perhaps take away to share this more widely. So just for, as I say, 6 minutes, I'm going to open the rooms and I will share with you that definition. Thank you, folks.
just to make sure we're covering everything.
I'm so sorry. It always feels quite abrupt when you're just disappeared, launched back into the main meeting. I'm really grateful for your time there, and whatever you spoke about that was useful to you will be helpful, is fine. Can I invite, is there any feedback? Are there anything that came up through your conversations that would be useful for me to be aware of in relation to that? Tom, you have your hand up. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, how you doing? You okay?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the old-fashioned idea of extended writing was just the sheer number of words that you've got in a piece of work, and it's, you know, it's not, sorry about that, it's not extended unless it's 3 or 4 pages in your book, you know. And I think, you know, as you know, Kath, we've done quite a bit of work on our writing journey, and I think being an extended piece is all about, you know, is there a purpose? Is there a context to what you're writing? Can the children like create their own success criteria independently, and do they have that chance to sort of have a draft and improve it? So the extended part of it is the whole process of the write to get to some end goal with it, really, for a purpose. So, and that's what we've you know, we've done a bit of work on that, really. So that's what I'd say is the extended write, really.
The process.
Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks for that, Tom. Absolutely. And yeah, that interestingly, it's that it is that kind of sequence of events, isn't it? Finished with a finished kind of purpose and product. Yeah, thank you. Any other conversations that can come back with regards to what we were thinking there about that kind of sustained? Because you're right, Tom. Again, the reason why this has come up is I sometimes get asked, how long does it need to be an extended piece? And you know, there's an anxiousness about that question, isn't there? And really, we'd rather have something that we can point to that would support schools in thinking about, as you say, purpose, audience, process. So any other comments that came up? Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, we were just talking about how we're just trying to slow the whole process down a little bit more now, you know, and take it from the end piece, working it backwards rather than, so we're arming the children with the skills to be able to create that end piece of work, but really paring it back, you know, taking it slowly, because everything is a rush these days. Everything is, got to cram everything in and do everything right now. And I feel, I don't know about anybody else, but I feel that by doing that, we're not teaching them properly how to do these things. So if you pare it right back, you know, and take your time and teach those skills properly, then you're teaching, well, you're teaching them those skills forever, rather than just a quick use, you know. So
yeah, thanks, Sarah. Yeah, and I think what you're saying the same thing, aren't you? That it's about that process and the children being developing the knowledge and the skills to be able to do that with some independence, and that has to be done slowly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any other comments? If any of you are thinking about what it is about that shared understanding in your own schools, and you do anything with regards to having that kind of commonality of language or some kind of definition, as always, I'm an email away, and we'd love to hear from you, because I think that's something that we will keep coming back to support you in your thinking. So thank you very much for that, folks. Okay, have you seen the final part of our session this afternoon? I am going to do this quite briefly because all of the information is on the slide, and some of it is also in the shared file section of our Teamspace, as always. So for some of you, you will be aware, and if you aren't, here is the beginning of that awareness. Calon Cymru, the Centre for Advancement of Literacy, Research-Led Outcomes and Nationwide Change, the national body that are being grant funded by Welsh Government to provide teaching materials, intervention materials, high quality professional learning for schools, is going to be made available to all schools in due time. But there are pilot opportunities for schools currently. the information, as you can see on the screen there, that the Calon is a collaboration between Bangor University and others, but funded by Welsh Government. They're providing, and the website link there gives you a fantastic array of resources and information about this. They are providing subsequent professional learning and guidance for teachers, teaching assistants, whole schools, primary and secondary. They're providing programs, teaching programs for classes, particularly for reception, year 3, 4 and year 7. They are providing intervention materials to use in schools and assessments associated with those. And if I just click to the next slide, it gives you a little bit further information there about those resources. So the professional learning is being provided in English and in Welsh for primary and secondary teachers, with a particular focus on those core skills for reading and writing, in particular phonics and reading comprehension with a note to the reading. They're also providing materials to strengthen that initial teacher education, to equip our younger teachers, teachers new to the profession, with the requisite skills. So I know that's a conversation I've had many times in schools. And they'll also be providing national guidance to support you in schools with the teaching and learning of English, first and foremost, but then literacy across the curriculum. They also, as I say, are providing teaching programs. The whole class teaching program will be focused on reception and whole class teaching of reception. They and year 1, an oral language program to provide support for vocabulary, comprehension and narrative skills. The RIL programs are for year 3 and year 4, providing whole class instruction to develop oral language, reading, phonics-based reading, and also the RIL intervention programme for pulling out groups of pupils once an assessment has been done, the language or the reading screen. And there will also be a programme that is designed for year 7 for our colleagues in secondary, because we know that as hard as we're working in the primary sector, that low baseline and the issues that you've all spoken about today in your groups mean that some of our learners leave primary and need that additional support in year 7. So the Ready to Learn programme is for teachers in year 7. I can't do this justice in 2 minutes in our network meeting. So the website, certainly, if you're not already involved as a pilot school, but would be interested in piloting those materials next year, I'm sure your heads are already on the case, but if you want to know more, the link on the slide will give you that. But I have also posted some handouts in our team space in the shared files section if you want to go and have a look. I briefly want to say hurrah to Ystrad Primary in Blaen y Gwent and Gilwern Primary in Monmouthshire, the 2 winning schools from the county round of this year's National Book Slam reading competition. As always, it was my delight and honour to be the county round judge, and delighted for those children who will be going through to the national final in Aberystwyth in June. So well done to everybody there, and I know that definitely we have colleagues from those schools here today, so congratulations. Just have you seen the Tir na Nog Reading Challenge is again live from the Books Council of Wales. If we're thinking about reading for pleasure and advocating that over the summer, the Reading Challenge is there for children to take part in over the summer. It's a fantastic resource that you could share with your children. But also, I just think for our own well-being, there is also one for adults, the Tir na Nog Reading Challenge for the summer. So why not challenge yourself, or maybe even share it with your staff, to engage in some reading of children's literature maybe over the summer, or adult, anything that'll just help us with our reading over the summer. So something to think about, and I've also posted those in our shared area in the team. Just a quick reminder that still 2 events of practice sharing this term still to come. I'm delighted to be sharing our online session on the 11th of June with 4 schools who will be sharing their primary spelling practice. So that's coming up next week. That'll be an excellent session. It will be recorded, and as always, I'll make that available through the team space to you after. And I'm delighted that Kate Summers from Gleslop Primary will be sharing their school's work this year with our humanities lead, Bridie Davis, sharing the high quality writing in humanities that they've been working on. So that another session that will be an excellent one next week. Just a final reminder to our Monmouthshire schools that their practice sharing event will be taking place on the 3rd of July, and there's a live link on the slide there to sign up. We've got some fantastic presentations from 6 schools in the local authority, so any Monmouthshire schools that haven't already signed up, I would really encourage it. It's going to be a great session. And finally, our today's meeting, the recording and all of the resources, including the slides, will be going into our team space as always, and the June 2026 folder is already there. Next year's meetings, dates for the diaries. Our meetings next year will be running online across all of our teams. We've all gone for a common time to save any confusion in schools with different team network meetings. So they'll all take place from 1 till 3 online, and you can see the dates on the screen there. These will be appearing in the team space soon, and I will share the codes for those also as soon as we have them. Our network meetings next year will continue to be an opportunity to share practice, and that will be primarily the focus of the session. But we're really going to focus in as far as we can on supporting your role as leaders, your leaders in evaluating practice in schools, in evaluating provision, teaching and learning and progress of pupils. And inevitably, we're going to have an enhanced focus, just like Estin, on reading. So something to be thinking about for next year. As always, if you have practice to share, I'm only an email away, and we'd love to hear about the work that you're doing as leaders to develop practice in your own school. So please drop me a line to share what you're doing. So with 2 minutes to spare, sorry, nearly there, a moment to reflect on what you've seen and heard with colleagues today before I've already posted in the chat, or you might use the QR code on the screen there with your phone to reflect upon what you found useful about today, what you might take away. And can I, as always, ask you to make a particular comment with regards to our presenters. It's a nerve-wracking thing coming on board, and it's always fantastic to hear live examples from schools, and we're always very grateful. So if you have any particular feedback to give to them, that would be the most important thing. So thank you very much. As always, I'll keep talking until the end, but if anybody would like to hang on, I'll hang on at the end of the meeting. Once I just stop this recording, people often find it easier to talk when it's not being recorded, so I'll just stop that. There we go. If anyone wants to